While a random villain called Parasite causes trouble in the city, Batman and some other heroes arrive to stop him, but the moment the villain starts to hand them their asses, they immediately request backup. Johns, who is staying on guard on the Watchtower, reaches out to Superman. But Superman is a little busy aura farming elsewhere, so he contacts the recruit, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, who has been desperate for an opportunity to prove himself, shows up immediately and reprimands the villain catching the public's eye. By the time Superman gets there, crowds have started to gather for the new hero, and some of them even make remarks about him being more effective than the Kryptonian. Captain Marvel, on the other hand, is a big fan of Superman, so he doesn't let the flattery get to his head. He shortly gets surrounded by a group of reporters, including Lois Lane, Superman's baddie, who question him about his position in the League. While answering the question, Captain Marvel casually comments on Lex Luthor's supposed reform and his rumored presidential campaign. Flying back to his hometown, Fawcett City, he hears the sound of bells, so he immediately disguises himself in some bushes and says his magic word, transforming back into his real identity, a young boy named Billy Batson. Billy tries to sneak into his middle school class, but his teacher reprimands him for coming late. The following day, aboard the Watchtower, Billy, in his Captain Marvel form, is starstruck by the number of heroes around him who treat him as an equal. However, his admiration quickly fades when Superman brings him before the founding members of the League for questioning. The Man of Steel sternly lectures him, explaining that his offhand remark about Lex Luthor has been twisted by the media into what appears to be a full public endorsement. Superman warns him that Luthor remains dangerous and that the world is far more complex than he realizes. Captain Marvel insists that people can change, but Superman refuses to believe it and forbids him from acting on his own without the League's consent. Later, Superman watches a televised interview featuring Phil O'Bannon and Lex Luthor, where Luthor discusses his new philanthropic project, Lexor City, a modern housing development for low-income families. During the interview, Luthor deflects skepticism about his reformation by referencing the Justice League's forgiveness of Hawkgirl after her betrayal. Captain Marvel, watching alongside Superman, expresses admiration for Luthor's initiative, but Superman still seems skeptical and clearly distrustful. Luthor then publicly invites Superman to attend Lexor City's grand opening, hoping to reinforce his image as a changed man. Meanwhile, Superman joins his homeboy, Batman, in battling a gang of supervillains. During the fight, Batman casually brings up Captain Marvel, noting that everyone seems to like the young hero because of his upbeat attitude.
Why is everyone defending him?
Superman dismisses the idea, clearly irritated, and the two of them continue with their conversation while humbling the overconfident villains. Once the fight ends, Batman receives a message from Professor Hamilton, who reports that nearly 4 pounds of weapons-grade kryptonite have been stolen from STAR labs. When they arrive, Superman immediately suspects Luthor, but Batman argues that the theft doesn't match his methods. He also remarks that the theft could have been done by anybody to frame Luthor and lead Superman to detest him more. Batman decides to investigate with the Atom, advising Superman to attend Luthor's charity event to keep an eye on him. At the Lexor City ceremony, a fair number of people show up for the grand opening, including Billy and some other kids. Luthor delivers his speech while referencing Superman as the city's hero, and this moves the hearts of the people as they applaud him. Superman remains tense throughout the event, waiting for the slightest slip-up from his nemesis, while others have a good time. However, after the speech, due to his super hearing, Superman overhears Luthor and Mercy discussing a contingency plan and an escape route. His suspicions then grow stronger as he begins scanning the area with his X-ray vision. Under the kids' playing ground, Superman detects a large energy signature and assumes it to be a hidden weapon. Ignoring protocol, he orders the area evacuated, causing panic among the guests. Before he can act further, Luthor explains that the machine is merely a kryptonite-based power generator, part of Lexor City's energy grid. Superman asks why he decided to hide it deep under the ground, but Luthor replies that it was simply for his protection, since everyone knows how terribly he fumbles whenever there's a shining green crystal around. Superman still tries to head towards it, but Lex warns that the generator could detonate if disturbed. Billy, who's been watching from a distance, transforms into Captain Marvel and intervenes, urging Superman to calm down and verify the facts before acting. However, Superman refuses to listen, convinced that Luthor is orchestrating another trap. As the confrontation escalates, Marvel tries to restrain him, but Superman's anger boils over, and he lashes out. The showdowns then begin as the two extraordinarily powerful heroes clash violently, trading massive blows in full view of the press. Their fight levels half of Lexor City like it's made of Lego sets in a toddler's tantrum, as the public watches in shock. At some point, Superman gains the upper hand, but the dynamic changes as Shazam gives him a fair amount of ads whooping as well, while they fight through the buildings. Superman gets his hand on an iron safe, which he uses to pound Captain Marvel into the ground. He then dives deep into the ground to destroy the device. Regardless, Captain Marvel refuses to quit as he follows Superman in and tries to stop him. Realizing that even with his cosmic powers, he's still nowhere near the Kryptonian in strength, he devises a tactic and holds Superman tight, using his magic words to summon a magical lightning strike on him. Screaming in pain, Superman finally manages to reverse their positions, causing the third strike to hit Marvel instead and revert him into Billy Batson. Shazam! Moving faster than anyone can react, Superman covers Billy's mouth to prevent him from saying the magic words again, then melts the generator just before it overloads. In the aftermath, the Atom arrives to examine the debris and confirms that the device was indeed only a power generator like Luthor claimed. Superman realizes too late that he has destroyed an innocent project, and with the media present, he is forced to apologize publicly. He offers to compensate Luthor for the damage with the League's resources, but Luthor sees it as an opportunity to aura farm in front of the press. He publicly declares that he's the one at fault for not informing Superman about it in the first place, and he also promises to take care of the funding himself without bothering the heroes. Back on the Watchtower, Captain Marvel calls a meeting with the founding members. During the meeting, Superman attempts to apologize, but Marvel rejects it and expresses his deep disappointment. He explains that he once looked up to the League, especially Superman, but after witnessing his recklessness and lack of faith, he no longer recognizes the ideals the League was founded upon. Declaring that he cannot remain part of such an organization, Marvel resigns and leaves. Afterwards, Superman admits his mistake to his teammates, confessing that Marvel was right and the League may have strayed from its moral foundation. Batman refrains from judgment, but tells Superman bluntly that they were set up. Meanwhile, in Metropolis, Luthor celebrates privately, revealing to Amanda Waller that the entire plan unfolded perfectly. The kryptonite power source had been designed only to provoke Superman's suspicion and trigger a public disaster. With Lexor City destroyed and Superman humiliated, the world now views Luthor as a redeemed visionary and the Justice League as unstable. Sharing a toast with Waller, Luthor remarks that everything went even better than expected. On the Watchtower, Green Lantern is just going about his day when he suddenly gets yanked into a room in the tower. He immediately activates his ring and prepares for an attack, but dismisses it when he identifies the ambusher as Vixen. Vixen, who clearly seems to be ovulating, points out that Green Lantern has been neglecting her and has not given her a reason to call him daddy in a while. She demands that the Lantern take her to dinner after his shift to compensate for the distance, and he agrees. While Green Lantern turns around to leave, Vixen immediately pulls him back and starts to do freaky things to him, but Green Lantern stops her, telling her that as much as his Johnson wants to give in, it's not the right time and place. Later in the control room, the League receives a distress signal from a group of alien miners who report that their equipment has malfunctioned and their ship is failing due to intense radiation from a strange ore they've been excavating on a remote moon. When John analyzes analyzes the sample data, the readings match the energy signature of nth metal, the same material that composes Shayera's weapon, the enchanted mace. Concerned by the discovery, Shayera volunteers to go and investigate the source. However, John insists that it'd be too dangerous for her to go alone. Green Lantern offers to go with her, but John turns down the offer, stating that he doesn't feel two founding members should be involved in the mission. John then assigns Vixen and Vigilante to accompany her for backup. Green Lantern objects immediately, uneasy with the pairing, because his history with both women makes him fear that personal tension could interfere with the mission. Despite his protests, John holds firm and orders the team to depart. Soon after, Shayera, Vixen, and Vigilante board a javelin and set course for the mining moon. During the journey, Vixen notices that, for some reason, Vigilante refuses to acknowledge Shayera as the team leader, as he keeps opposing her decisions. When they arrive, the team lands near the supposed mining site and begins scanning for signs of life. The readings, however, show no trace of miners, equipment, or ships, only faint energy signatures that seem to shift erratically. Following the signal, they come upon a large mining installation built into a cliffside. At first, it appears functional and intact, but once inside they get inside, Shayera uses her weapon for light, but notices that the shadows don't seem to respond to light, so she realizes that they're in a hologram. Before they can react, a sudden energy blast strikes nearby and a full-scale ambush follows. Their attackers are invisible at first, but Shayera quickly identifies the weapon signatures: Thanagarian. The javelin is destroyed in the crossfire, forcing the trio to take cover among the rocks. When the enemy decloaks, they're revealed to be a squadron of Thanagarian soldiers led by Perrin Dull, a commander who fought in the Thanagarian invasion of Earth. She declares that they've come for vengeance, blaming Shayera for betraying her own people and siding with the Earthlings, dooming their empire. During the confrontation, Perrin informs Shayera that the Thanagarian fleet was annihilated by the Gordanians after the failed invasion. The once mighty empire is now broken, and Hro Talok, Shayera's former lover and commander, died in a suicide attack against the Gordanian flagship. Perrin tells the Leaguers that they'd be set free as long as they surrender Shayera, otherwise they'd be unalived with her. As expected, the two heroes are strict against betraying a team member, although Vigilante still refuses to submit to Shayera's leadership. The League trio retreats deeper into the rocky terrain to regroup. With their ship gone, their communication channels have been shut down, so they know very much that there's no easy way out. Shayera uses her military knowledge to plan an escape route, but the tension between her and Vigilante becomes increasingly apparent. He constantly guilt-trips her about what her people did to him when he was a prisoner, pointing out that she's still one of them. Shayera, burdened by guilt, starts to believe she deserves whatever the Thanagarians plan for her. She considers surrendering, thinking it might atone for her past, but Vixen strongly disagrees. She argues that surrendering will only get them all killed and accuses Shayera of giving up too easily. Her tone sharpens when she mentions Green Lantern, saying he always speaks of Shayera's courage, something they could really use at the moment. While on the move, the group is ambushed again, and Vigilante, who had taken a plasma blast to the leg earlier, slows them down. Shayera and Vixen manage to pull him into cover, but in the chaos, Vixen is captured. While the Ops try to unalive her, she says the Leaguers and pleads to side with them and help them capture Shayera, as long as they spare her life. She then gets taken aboard a Thanagarian vessel. While she tries to use the opportunity to reach out to the Watchtower, Perrin catches her and realizes she's a spy. Injured and outnumbered, Vigilante insists they regroup and come up with a rescue plan. Shayera, however, decides to surrender herself in exchange for Vixen's release. She tells Vigilante to stay behind and disappears into the sky to face her pursuers. Left alone, Vigilante refuses to stand down. Using his wits, he sets up a makeshift snare trap from a fallen tree and manages to catch one of the Thanagarians. Threatening him with his revolver, Vigilante forces the soldier to reveal the location of their ship. Though wounded, he hobbles into the stolen craft and pilots it toward the enemy stronghold. Meanwhile, Shayera meets up with Perrin Dull and her second-in-command, Krager. True to her word, she surrenders peacefully, allowing herself to be restrained. However, when she gets captured, Krager, eager to prove his loyalty, takes things further and drops Vixen from a high altitude, sending her plummeting toward the ground far below. Shayera struggles against her captors, but it's too late as they have already made her drop her weapon. At the last second, Vigilante appears in the commandeered ship, managing to catch Vixen mid-fall before she hits the surface. Paran then tries to take him down, but Vixen gives her a premium, all-inclusive ass whooping before sending her flying like Team Rocket. Barely able to control the vessel, Vigilante steadies it long enough for Vixen to recover. Together, they head back towards Shayera's location. Meanwhile, Shayera uses the distraction to break free from her restraints, and she takes down Kragger and the other soldiers immediately. With the mission complete, Shayera, Vixen, and Vigilante return to the Watchtower. When they arrive, Green Lantern checks in, worried that the mission may have made things worse between the two women, but to his surprise, Shayera and Vixen ignore him like a middle child and head to a bar for some drinks. Green Lantern then starts to tremble in his fancy pants at the sight of his girlfriend and his ex both getting along. Meanwhile, at the bar, the girls laugh about John's quirks and stubbornness, both admitting he still means something to them. In the end, they agree that if there's going to be competition for his heart, it'll be a friendly one. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.